Thank you, Chris. So good evening.
Good
Thank
evening.
you all for joining us. We certainly are happy that you're here for a celebration in honor of Dr. Floyd Poore, our dad. We appreciate you. A few housekeeping items before we get started. Family and a few friends are going to say some words about Dad. For those that know him, he wasn't a big fan of a long service. So we're going to keep it nice and brief, and we're going to have a band and some additional food and beverages for folks throughout the evening. If you haven't done so already, we would love for you to record your favorite Floyd story or Floydism back on the deck. They're going to compile all of those and share videos with the family members. So we'd love to hear from you. You know, as we kick things off, just deep appreciation to Chambers and Grubbs for getting things set up, the folks here at Triple Crown, and Marty Connor and his team that are going to be performing later. So I would say, for those that I haven't met, I'm Doug Poore, the youngest Poore, and I feel like we've been preparing for this moment all our lives. And I say that because as a family, there wasn't really a conversation that went by where we weren't around the round table, we weren't having a discussion about life and death. And in everything we did, Mom and Dad would always talk about living life to the fullest. But there was always that gentle reminder towards the latter part of the conversation about, you don't know if this is the last day. So as you make choices in life, make sure you make the right ones, make sure you embrace the people that you love most, because you don't know when that's going to end. And I say we've been preparing our whole lives for that because we had those very open, candid discussions as family. So while for many of us, January came as we hit COVID round 2, and the world around us felt so small, Dad's exit was very quick, but it's exactly how he wanted it. He'd lived the life he wanted. So I ask, when we think about the future together, we embrace those around us and remember to live every day as much as we can. I think Dad certainly left his mark. Each of us was impacted in very different ways and took something away from those conversations. Dad had thousands of different memorable sayings, and you'll hear many of them today from family and friends. Here are 3 that I try to live by. I try to remind myself of these, and I have to say some are much more relevant today than they were 20, 30 years ago when Dad would share them. The first was, son, don't try to keep up with the Joneses. You need to live your best life, not the one where you always are comparing to others. If you get caught up comparing yourself to others, you'll always encounter someone that is smarter, fitter, bigger, smaller, richer, better. Avoid the ers. Strive for greatness and work harder than everyone around you. The second was, this is an interesting one, I think some folks may relate, how to die broke. So we're doing our best tonight with an open bar and shrimp cocktail to follow through on Dad's wishes, so drink away. Imagine waking up one Christmas and under the tree is the book, How to Die Broke. That happened in the Poore house. So the book focuses on much more than the monetary aspects of life. It talks about how you live your life to the fullest. And if you've done so, the money you leave at the end really doesn't matter, because those around you have been rewarded in experiences throughout the entire course of your life. So if you live your life to the fullest, what's really left? Well, heck, Dad wanted this celebration to be a little bit different. He wanted us to be burying him in the bus with his very last dollar. So unfortunately, Mom and Dad sold the bus a few years ago. I would say I was looking forward to Chris Grubbs and the team with their shovels, and the rest of us rolled up with our shovels throwing that dirt over the bus. That would have really followed through on Dad's wishes, but this we'll have to do. And the last was, live life with no regrets. And I think when we look at how Dad lived every day, it was amazing to me, because he had plenty to look back on and say, well, this decision really perhaps wasn't the best in the long run. But never once did he regret a decision he made. ultimately, he said, you know what? You choose to remain to be positive and optimistic about the future. And for 83 years, he lived that life with not a single regret. He may have talked about the fact that Cracker Barrel could have been his, along with a dentist, on the cruise ship that wanted to invest in it, or the Georgetown land or Mall Road or anything else, but he never did. It was somewhat miraculous that he didn't. And he would always say, make a decision, enjoy the ride, look forward, not back. Don't think about what could have been, but focus on what can be. So those are the three things that I take away from sitting around the round table with Dad. Today we're here to celebrate a life, not mourn a death. We appreciate you being here to celebrate, and look forward to having one of Dad's longest living colleagues and longest friends join us for some comments about how they came to be one of the most successful medical practices in the country. Dr. Baird?
Dr. Glenn Baird.
I'll make this fairly short. There's so many Floyd stories that you could tell that we'd be here all night. But Floyd and I got acquainted in medical school when we were freshmen. It was about 62 years ago. And then we decided to come and practice together. At that time, we had a little problem. I had to go to this service for 2 years, and Floyd and Herb came on in and practiced. I joined them 2 years later, but we had a very successful practice. Herb was from the mountains, I was from western Kentucky, and Floyd was from northern Kentucky. But we blended very well, and the three of us were complemented each other. But I've never had a better friend than Floyd Poore. Floyd was an individual. If you knew him, you had a friend for life. It wasn't anyone. If no matter what you did, he was there for you. I'd like to just sum it all up. Floyd was the type of person that energized you to be a better person. And there's a saying that I don't know where it came from, but it says, dance like no one is watching, sing when nobody's listening, and live your life like it's your last day on earth. And Floyd did that. And he and I were really close until his death. So that's all I'm gonna say. Thank you.
Well, I didn't see how many people were here. Having my back to you, I'm so grateful to everyone for being here tonight. Thank you. I'm Kim Poore. I am the eldest of the group, and it's my honor now to follow Dr. Baird with a letter from Dr. Herb Booth, who is their other partner, the trio, the brotherhood, really. And unfortunately, Dr. Booth fell. He had a fall and he broke his shoulder, and so he couldn't be here tonight, but he wrote a letter, and if you don't mind, I'm just going to read it. I am Herbert Booth, medical physician, retired, and I worked with Dr. Floyd Poore for 60 years. I met Floyd in medical school in 1958. Before graduation, we had determined that we had very similar goals, and we decided to incorporate for legal purposes to build a medical facility. While we were legally equal, no one is equal to Floyd. He was a character in the largest sense of the word. He wore bright, colorful clothing. He lived in a domed World's Fair house and drove a white Rolls Royce. He made a statement even before he spoke a word. He would gather people around him, state his name, ask your name, your occupation, and where you were from, and he never forgot it. In our medical school class, he learned all of the medical students' names and something about each of them which he never forgot. He was also very punctual. always on time. He was focused and he stayed on topic. When Floyd and I were planning our medical facility, we studied maps, economic and demographic indicators, and determined precisely where we wanted to build our practice and raise our families, and we chose Boone County. We interviewed several people in the area and asked them how they liked their present medical care, and they all indicated a need for more access to quality medical care. I could list many personal assets that Floyd demonstrated. He was bold, brave, and caring. He delivered on what he promised, unlike, now these are his words, Governor Happy Chandler, who later became a friend and advisor of Floyd, and said that campaign promises were to be ignored after the election. I'm just going to throw in, I don't really subscribe to that. Floyd did what he said he was going to do. Here are a couple of incidents that demonstrate Floyd's character. We had a patient who was apparently targeting his wife with a handgun and attracted all the elements of government, police, fire, clergy, and others. And by the time Floyd got there, he marched directly up to the man, demanded that he give him the gun, which he did. And then there was another incident similar in nature when Floyd accosted, I think he approached a patient regarding a delicate situation as claimed by his wife. The patient then pulled a hunting knife and charged Floyd. He was finally subdued and treated. However, one of the more memorable incidents was early in our practice. I was making hospital rounds that morning, and I was checking on a terminal cancer patient in the ICU. The patient complained that Floyd was not there, who had been seeing him daily. I explained that I was Floyd's replacement for the day. He said that Floyd was like the sun coming up. Most doctors, lawyers, and people he would soon be in contact with were typically dressed in very conservative clothing, but Dr. Poore was always in his colorful attire, and apparently he was the sunshine this patient needed. These morning rounds were usually around 5 in the morning before the sun did come up. So you could write a book about Floyd and only scratch the surface. But can you make the sun come up on someone's last desperate hours? Floyd, as you may know, became active in Martha Lane Collins' gubernatorial race and was made Secretary of Transportation and subsequently left our practice after being there for about 25 years. However, we managed to keep in touch for the remainder of time by hook or crook, and after about 25 years, he began to call me brother. I asked him about it, and Floyd said, "You treat me like a brother. So I think of you as my brother." In closing, I don't say goodbye to Floyd because his spirit lives on in all of us, and especially when we think of his colorful appearance and personality. He stays within us only by saying, "So long, brother, see you soon." So that was so touching, and I'm so appreciative to Dr. Booth for writing that letter. And as he said, so many of his lifelong friends would all say the same thing. Dad was a loyal and devoted friend. He was a listener, but he also gave brutally honest advice. Brutally honest. When you were with him, he was completely engaged. He was engaged with you. There was no one else in the room. He was notably eccentric in his life, but he never met a stranger, and he genuinely loved his family, he loved people, and he loved Kentucky. He would put his hand out for his notoriously firm handshake and introduce himself. "I'm Dr. Floyd Poore." And with genuine interest, he would learn as much as he could about the person with whom he was speaking. He was generous with his time, his service to his community and his state, and to those he loved. His memory was impressive. His work ethic was unmatched. He learned this working with his parents on the family farm. He told us stories about having to get up at 4 a.m. and milk cows before school, and we made jokes about having to walk uphill both ways to school. But in reality, he really did get up and work the farm before school. And he worked all summer stripping tobacco in the hot sun. He knew what he wanted in life. As a physician, he was up every morning before sunrise and home every night for dinner with his family. He was determined to prove himself at an early age, whether it was excelling at basketball at the height of 5'7", or being the first in his family to go to college, let alone finishing his undergraduate degree at Georgetown College in 2 years and 9 months, and finishing medical school by the time he was 23. He loved people, he loved his family, and traveling and exploring. His favorite advice, and there was a lot, as Doug alluded to, he said, expand your horizons. That he loved to say that. He loved to say, you can do anything you want in life, and he lived by it. His dictums were to be honest, to treat people with respect, and to explore the world. He often said to us, I don't care what you do as a profession, but be the best at whatever you do. He was a great mentor. I enjoyed the times that I insisted on going on house calls with him or to those late night office runs to suture someone up. He knew my world, first as a nurse and in medicine, and then in the legislature. He understood Frankfurt, the culture. He worried a little bit about me, but he encouraged me in all of my efforts. He was my greatest cheerleader. He had great respect for women in leadership, as was evidenced as his all-in approach to getting Martha Lane Collins elected the very first woman governor in Kentucky. He supported and encouraged my brothers and sisters and me equally and enthusiastically. We had frequent talks, and although we differed in political party affiliation, we had healthy discussions and he respected my views. I joked with him that he was really a Republican. He just laughed. He was wise, and his advice was solid and insightful, and I will miss that about him. I will miss his warmth and his laugh. He was resolute and decisive, as Doug said. I never heard him complain, ever, about anything. Instead, he dealt with anything that came his way with determination and focus. He made the best of any situation, even up until the very end. We had plenty of funny stories and experiences with 6 kids, things like traveling back to Kentucky, and this is, it's funnier for us because we were there, but our bus broke down when we were in Colorado on the Loveland Pass. And so we loaded up the Pacer, the original compact car. We really had one. We had one and we pulled it behind the bus, and we loaded all 8 of us into this tiny little thing. And I think Doug sat on the console, and we ate sourdough bread, and I think Mom and Dad probably even cracked open a bottle of wine just to get us to go to sleep from our trip in San Francisco. It's true, right? And we listened to Johnny Cash and Merle Haggard and John Denver, and oh my gosh, as teenagers, it was so annoying. But they've all become fond memories, and we actually kind of know all the words. So we had so many adventures in our travels across the U.S., eventually visiting almost every state in the nation, and they even exposed us to travel abroad, and this was all because they believed in and stressed education. They considered our travels education, which I agree with. I am happy to say that this has been passed on to our 5 boys and all of my siblings and all my nieces and nephews as well. Mom and Dad stressed the importance of education and encouraged us in all of our educational pursuits. Their most cherished moments, though, were spending time with their children and grandchildren. They loved their 14 grandchildren and 2 great-grandchildren, Charlie and Liam, and they were very excited. Dad was very excited to meet Oliver, who's due in July. He was very proud of all of his family and loved being a part of his grandchildren's lives. When Christian was accepted into medical school, the first thing Mom and Dad did was put his graduation on their calendar. Dad was so beside himself excited that he was going to be able to present Christian with his doctoral hood at graduation as a U of L medical, School of Medicine or College of Medicine alumnus. So we were really blessed that he was able to do that. Mom and Dad traveled in their bus frequently. They had a very close-knit group of friends, and they spent winters in Naples, even as Dad continued to practice medicine as a hospitalist in Middlesboro, Kentucky. He really commuted. Dad spent his adult years caring for people in medicine and serving as the Kentucky Secretary of Transportation under Martha Lane, and then public liaison to the governor. He collected cars, he wore loud clothes, and he made friends wherever he went. He loved life, and another one of his sayings is he touched all the bases. Our tears of sadness are mixed with tears of gratitude for all that he taught us. He was a wonderful father, grandfather, he just touched so many. We are forever grateful for all that he carried through the community and all that he did for us. And his spirit will certainly live within all of us. Thank you.
Hi. I am Wendy Poore Berkey, and I'm not a seasoned speaker, so bear with me. Grief is the price we pay for love. On this Sunday, we celebrate Father's Day. Our dad is gone, our sorrow immense. Over the years, I've learned that it is not flesh and blood, but the heart which makes a dad. You see, Dad gave me a priceless gift. Borrowed lyrics from a well-known song. Piece by piece, he filled the holes that were burned in me at 6 years old. He never walked away. He took care of me. He loved me. I loved him. Piece by piece, he restored my faith that a man can be kind and a father could stay. That was Dad. My appreciation for Dad's greatness cannot be measured. In January of 2020, I drove Dad down to Florida. That's a lot of Hank Williams and John Denver. I spent several weeks with him organizing his many notes, sticky notes. He had about 15 or 20 of them, from how to get his mail to the closest barber shop, all per his careful instruction. I fixed some of his favorite foods, Mom's ceviche, Aunt Jules' rum cake, cheese tassies. I put out his favorite cereal and coffee cup before going to bed, so it would be ready when he got up at 4:30 or 5 a.m. He was a disciplined man. This never changed. We visited Glenn and Brenda almost daily, visited Mom and Dad's Crystal Lake friends. We had seafood and more seafood, and it was just a lot of fun. We even watched Andy Griffith. On Mom's birthday, we toasted her with Bloody Marys, of course. And when we came home, we were feeling sentimental. So I asked Dad to sing some of his favorite songs. He did, and I recorded them. His voice was still smooth and strong. Don't be surprised if you hear it later on as Marty tries incorporating Dad's songs into his own. And before I left Florida, I bought a pack of 12 plain note cards. I wrote 1 to 2 questions on each, self-addressed, stamped envelopes, and I asked Dad if he would mind filling them out and mailing them back to me. Only 1 card per week, keep it simple. Well, within a week of returning to Connecticut, the cards started coming. All 12 in about 10 days. That was Dad. So I'd like to share 2 especially poignant ones. Here. Flashlight he always used. 7. What is your earliest childhood memory? And Dad wrote, riding in my dad's lap in a truck, riding my pony, and getting a new bicycle. Just kind of sweet. And then the last card. What is the one thing you most want people to remember about you? And Dad said that I was honest, forthright, hardworking, and respected, and my love for wife and family. That's it. There's actually one funny one I'd kind of like to read. Do you have a favorite memory of grandparents? And if so, who and what? And Dad said, grandparents sitting in rocking chair, both smoking a pipe. Always a smile, a great greeting, and never in a hurry. I love that. So, don't get lost in your pain. Know that one day your pain will become your cure. That's Rumi. Thanks.
Wow, that's all I'm gonna say. Beautiful. Thank you. Honestly, I was completely and totally intimidated by the challenge of getting up here and saying anything that could be worthy of my dad. I almost forfeited the opportunity. And then I found, I missed one thing, sorry. Among Dad's things, 2 cards that I wrote him on Father's Day. Sunday is Father's Day. And the one thing I'm sure of is he's resting in heaven. All the things that I ever wanted to say to him, he heard while he was here on this earth. Dad, in my eyes, you are all that a dad should be. And so very much more. You've lived by example. You've loved unconditionally. You've helped shape who I am and inspired me to be all that I am capable of being. I learned most of the core principles that serve me as the foundation for my personal and professional success from you. All that you have taught me has served me well. I am incredibly fortunate to have had a front seat in the greatest classroom on earth. Learning how to live life, give back, love others, and be a leader in all that I do. If another word were never spoken between us, it is my hope and prayer that you know in your heart the depth of my love for you. Byron, my father-in-law, I refer to. His death was so unexpected and sudden. It certainly emphasizes the importance of letting those who we love know how we feel about them. My genuine love and deep respect for you has never gone unsaid, but out of an abundance of certainty, it is so important to me to know that you know what you mean to me. For who you are, what you've meant to me at every stage of my life, and all you've done for me and so many others, I am grateful, and my heart is full. On Father's Day, I welcome everyone in this room to say those things that you once said. Don't gather at an event like this to share the things that you didn't take the chance to share with the people that you love while you're with them. Another Father's Day card. On Father's Day, it's nice to pause and reflect on what you mean to us, Dad, and give thanks for the incredible influence you have had in and on our lives. Many values instilled, lessons taught, and love shared. A nearly perfect balance of rules versus freedom, discipline versus self-governance, dreams versus reality, which made for a safe and enriching environment to grow up in and develop us, all of us, into the adults that we've become. Are you a perfect dad? Maybe not, but you sure were the perfect dad for us. Much of who we are, the success and good fortune we've enjoyed, and the happiness that we have is the most beautiful reflection on you.
As you can see, I'm wearing a pretty loud coat, pretty representative of Dad, and it's his. I want to read a letter that my sister wrote because she couldn't make it. I'm Papa's grandson. I'm Wendy's, she's my mom. And my sister Madison couldn't make it because she's overseas, but she really wishes she could have been here. She starts off with a quote from Rumi. I learned that every mortal will taste death, but only some will taste life. If there was ever a line that truly embodied my grandfather, it was this one. He was the true essence of the American dream, starting from a happy, though humble beginning on a farm, rising to every challenge that life threw him to really live and taste life. He traveled the world, built an incredible and giving career, and enjoyed all of the many greatnesses of life. The best and most important being love and family. He and my grandmother together built a truly modern family through the love they had for one another. I know that while selfishly we all miss him, he's now tasting the next adventure, reunited with the love of his life, love his granddaughter, and love me.
Amen.
Got a lot of people here. I like it. Good stuff. Good stuff. For those of you, probably most of you know me, I'm Jeff. I am Christy's husband and Dr. Poore's son-in-law, his favorite son-in-law. Sorry, Neil. Earlier you heard him refer to Doc's Rolls Royce that he had and a lot of his loyalty. No matter what age you were, if he knew you and he trusted you and he liked you, you were in. Well, Marty Connor, he actually let him drive that Rolls Royce and took my wife to the prom. So we'll talk about that later. But, I'm blessed and fortunate to have had my father and my father-in-law in my life. Both men, if they said it, they meant it, and they were sincere. And you always knew where you stood, which in this day and age is rare sometimes. So one of the things I'll never forget is I remember when Doc told my father goodbye when he was called home a couple years ago. Very emotional from both men, mutual respect, love, and I'm telling you, it's a blessing for me to have two men that impacted my life like they have and will till I'm called home one day. The kids in the family, after Doc passed, we of course had the necessary duties of cleaning things out, distributing, closing estates, things of that nature. We were fortunate enough to get Doc's desk. Christy thinks this desk was bought maybe in 1970, 71-ish. So it's got a little bit of age on it, and special to me because that's where I sat across from Doc and asked him to marry his daughter. So good stuff there, and now that sits in my office, and I'm proud of it and think of him every time I walk by. So it's good stuff. Some others have mentioned the friends that he had. And I think in the state of Kentucky, I think Doc had friends in all 120 counties, as well as throughout the country. I mean, they were near and far. I mean, with the family travels on the bus and, all 50 states, it was amazing of the thousands of friends that he had. And you heard him talk about the buses that he had for all the years, the different ones that he stepped up to along the way. We were fortunate enough to enjoy those rides and those with family and friends. A lot of fun, and I'll tell you, it was amazing. He could drive that Prevost bus over the Loveland Pass or down the interstate or wherever he was going, tight roads. He could tell you every little bell, whistle, button, and switch on that bus, but the man couldn't operate a damn VCR. It's amazing. It's amazing. So, something else. Most of the family knows, and many of you that have been around us when we have family gatherings and things like that, I loved to imitate Dr. Poore. As Doug mentioned, around the round table, many, conversations, family, politics, local, national news, we broke it down. So I'll give you a few of my favorites, and hopefully we'll get some smiles and some laughs, but one of them, and many of you can relate. I know Jerry Horowitz used to join us on Christmas Eve a lot, and the Shears, and we'd have people over, and sometimes Doc was on call. So I always said, being a doc on call, it's really not too hard. Here's how it goes. We'd all be sitting at the table, that phone would ring, and he's, just a minute now, just a minute, calm us down. This is Dr. Poore. Yeah. Okay, go on up to ER and follow up with you next week. Have a good one now. That's how that went. So it's pretty easy. I offered to take call for him many a time, but I had it down. And then one evening on a Christmas Eve, he took it up a notch. It was probably 8:30 or 9. We just finished opening gifts.